The survey has been prompted by a perceived increase in the level of crime in the Hunter Street Mall, with Newcastle Police keen to improve the public's feeling of safety.
It'll be looking at how safe people feel that they are when they're in the mall at various times, night and day. It'll be based on their ages, their perceptions of their security.
The surveys will be handed out by police in the mall for a week starting next Monday and will include questions such as, do you visit the mall at night, and is there a need to improve the feeling of safety in the Hunter Street Mall? The results of the survey will help determine future decision making.
And it'll be used as a major submission for other things when we put to the council, for instance, whether people feel the surveillance camera system might be useful. And it'll also be used as a basis for later on if we'd like to be able to extend the security to other areas of the CBD.
It's any young muso's dream to record an album and play to a packed auditorium. This afternoon, that dream was becoming a reality for Scott Thomas. With his 8-piece band, he was hard at work preparing for a debut performance at Newcastle City Hall. The Newcastle teenager has spent years honing his skills as a pianist, composer and singer. Now it seems the hard work is paying off.
It's sort of coming along now. It's taken 2.5 years to get this far as the album's going, with the writing and everything.
With a repertoire of original pieces and covers, Scott will soon be embarking on a promotional tour across the state. And as for the university course, well, that will just have to wait.
I'd love to play at Yankee Stadium in America. That's my dream.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
The Falcons dunked their way to a 4-point lead at the first break, but that only made their second quarter capitulation look worse. The Devils sunk 35 points as the Tasmanians shot to a 10-point lead at half-time. Rookie Ben Pepper appreciated the extra court time to get the Falcons back in contention in the third. But most valuable player David Stiff continued to come up with the rebounds and baskets on his way to 29 points for the game. At one stage in the last quarter, the Falcons led by 4, but with just 2.2 seconds left on the clock, Scott Ninnis needed all 3 free throws to tie the game. He missed the first, sank the second, and rebounded the third, only to miss the shot that could have stolen the game. Indicative of a performance the Falcons would rather forget. The final score, 95-93, Hobart's first win of the season. Meanwhile, today's wet weather has forced the postponement of the Newcastle Lawn Bowls pennant finals. Redhead was 4-0 up against Hamilton when rain washed out play at the Charlestown Bowling Club. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Curry fullback Brian Robb celebrated his 100th game for the club. Former Bulldog Tony Highmarch probably wished he'd stayed around as long, with Curry giving him the traditional welcome back to the town. Curry also made its presence felt on the scoreboard, a penalty goal giving the locals a 2-0 lead. That was extended courtesy of a Denny Linnane pass. Souths launched themselves at the Bulldogs line, but they couldn't break the Premier's defence. 2 penalty goals got the visitors within 4, but Denny Linnane dived on a loose ball to give Curry a 12-4 lead at the break. But it was a different game in the second half, Souths coming home with a wet sail to win 14 points to 12. In other games, Maitland downed Central Charlestown by just 16-10 and Nelson Bay downed Waratah 25-20. In rugby union, the Newcastle Wildfires played with 14 men for most of the game in a gallant defeat to Gordon. Matthew Kennedy was sent off in the 17th minute for attacking the head of a player, but Newcastle played on gamely to go down 18-23. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Billed as the game of the year, there was no love lost between Lakes and Wests. Ewan McGrady showed his football brilliance. With his first touch, he put Smith in under the posts. With the kick, it was 6-0. A professional foul saw West down a player for 10 and Lakes grabbing another 2 points. Wests weren't about to back off. Just before half-time, Jamie Greenaway made a clever break, leaving the line open for Les Smith. With the conversion, it was 8-6 and anyone's game. With Lakes captain David Smith off with a leg injury, the Seagulls showed real courage in defence. And with just minutes remaining, they piled on the points with a 20-6 win, the victory leaving them alone at the top of the table. Peter Ryan, NBN News. With both Illawarra and Rosebud struggling at the bottom of the Soccer Super League table, this was the chance for Adamstown to grab some points. In the first half, they took their chances and looked good. Graham Jennings had everyone talking with a 35-metre thunderbolt, giving the Rosebuds a 1-0 break. The second half was a different story, Illawarra snaring 3 goals and a convincing away win. To bowls in the annual grudge match between Newcastle and Northern Sydney in the Interzone Championships. Of the 48 players on the Heaton Birmingham Gardens Club greens, 5 are Australian representatives, 14 state players. And it was a battle to the end. A brilliant Newcastle fightback gave the locals a sniff of victory, but incredibly it ended at a 114-all draw. Still on the greens, and 10-year-old Aaron Sheriff from Budgewoi showed bowling isn't just for the older generation. Aaron competed in the Swansea Club's 19th annual Surf Club Day, a tournament supporting surf clubs from the mid-north coast through to the central coast. The big winner today was the Newcastle Club, picking up this rubber ducky. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Scone already has the reputation as a centre of thoroughbred excellence. The centrepiece is its new multi-million-dollar track and equine research centre. They were built on the foundations of the horse breeding industry which surrounds Scone. But the town's yearling sale hasn't attracted the same attention, but that's slowly changing. The sales were conducted at the town's old White Park racecourse, with sales breaking the magic million. The average price was also well up, with the 139 yearlings averaging nearly $8,000 each. The best, a Zephyr Zip colt bred at nearby Sutton Farm, which Sydney trainer Neil Campton bought for $47,500. Newcastle trainer Paul Perry and Central Coast trainer Kevin Robertson were also big buyers. A record-breaking 50-second Scone yearling sale, providing the perfect finale to Horse Week. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Roger Hewish was back at work at his father's smash repair business today, none the worse for his ordeal. Less than 36 hours before, the 31-year-old father of 2 was battling the freezing waters of Tuggerah Lake, desperate to reach the shore after he and 2 companions were spilled into the water when their dinghy capsized. Roger took it upon himself to go for help while his mates clung to the upturned boat.
And they were, thinking the worst. Then I looked at my watch and it was 10 to 10. And I thought, well, there's no way we could stay out here all night. No way.
A search operation involving a helicopter eventually located the 2 fishermen hanging desperately to the boat. Both were taken to hospital suffering hypothermia. Roger is the first to admit he's not the world's greatest swimmer. He says at times during the ordeal he thought his number was up, but one thought kept him going.
And I kept resting, lying on my back, floating, and I was looking up at the stars and that. And just thought about, like, I've got the twin boys and a few things, and I thought, yeah, well, I have to keep going. I have to keep going.
As for suggestions he's a hero, well, Roger is having none of that.
It's just one of these accidents, and luckily it worked out for the best.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
It's a multi-million-dollar industry that farmers say is being put at risk. Federal Primary Industries Minister John Anderson is looking to import cooked chicken meat from Thailand and the United States. It's a battle that Australian chicken growers have been fighting for years.
This is an accident waiting to happen. It's certainly not in line with the legislation. The legislation on quarantine suggests no risk whatsoever, and we think we should stick with that.
The main fear is Newcastle disease, a disease which could cripple the industry. The union movement see the plan as a direct attack on jobs. When Thai chicken was imported into Japan, it took 20% of that market.
If that was to occur here, that would cost us something like 15,000 jobs.
Fast food chains are thought to be pushing for the overseas imports. Because of cheap labour and subsidies, it can be brought into the country at a cheaper rate than the local product. The government is yet to make its final decision. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Harold and Judy Harrigan are very proud of their son, but the chief's mum gets far too nervous to watch State of Origin.
I think I'll do the usual. I'll find something else to do, and when it's finished and all taped, I'll come out and watch it then.
Harold usually goes to the game even when it's in enemy territory, but for his son's 13th State of Origin, Harrigan Senior is staying at home.
I think I've missed one besides this one, but I generally like to be there. But this time I think I must be getting a bit old. I think the nerves are starting to get to me. I'll sit at home and watch them from the lounge room this time.
Just down the road, Adam Muir's mum is looking forward to the clash.
I think, no, he'll be fine. I think he might get the first try anyway.
Like her son, Marie Muir likes a bet. She's watched Adam grow from the Valentine under-10s soccer team to the dizzy heights of Australian and State of Origin honours.
I never thought he'd get to where he is today. And his father and I are both very proud of him.
And there's no guessing on the predictions for the winner tonight.
Oh, the Blues.
New South Wales, of course.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
He must know something, but don't say nothing. He just keeps rolling. He keeps...
29-year-old James Mannion and 23-year-old Lisa Craig were found dead in this Warners Bay house in October last year. An inquest into their deaths heard today that they died from a cocktail of drugs, including heroin, methadone, morphine and antidepressants. Lisa Craig had also secreted several foils of heroin, which were found to be 74% pure, 5 times stronger than normal. Family and friends described a destructive relationship. Lisa had been a user of heroin
heroin since she was 16 years old. James had continually suffered guilt and grief over the shooting 12 years ago, which had left him a paraplegic. His sister Anne Clark said he could never understand why his parents had kept quiet about the incident. They had blamed James's older brother Michael until recently, when the truth had finally come out. James's father was sentenced to 5 years jail. Also giving evidence was Ian Hunter and Sharon Wallace, who were in the house the night Lisa and James died. Sharon Wallace told the coroner of a conversation she had with Lisa Craig in the days before she died. She said Lisa had told her how she used to go to Cabramatta. As she got off the train, she'd be approached by children as young as 8 who'd sell her heroin, which they had hidden in balloons in their mouths. Police believe Lisa and James were in Sydney 3 days before they were found dead. That same week, they were also accepted into the methadone program. Coroner Col Elliott will hand down his findings at a later date. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The neonatal intensive care unit at John Hunter Hospital is the only one in Australia outside a capital city. It's 8 high-tech ventilator beds, the difference between life and death for premature babies born in the region between Newcastle and the Queensland border. However, from the start of next month, only half the beds will be in use, as 2 of the hospital's 3 specialist neonatologists will be on leave.
It's just the personnel not available. They're very specialised people, and there's not too many of them around Australia, around the world.
Since January, the hospital has scoured Australia and the world for a replacement to fill the gap, however, has been unable to find someone prepared to spend June and July in Newcastle.
And there were negotiations concerning an overseas neonatologist, which unfortunately didn't eventuate.
The staffing problems are unlikely to affect premature babies born in the Hunter region. However, the hospital says babies from the North Coast will likely be sent to Sydney. Dr Brinsmead says babies will not be placed at risk.
The whole neonatal service across the state is used to shuffling mothers and babies around.
Staffing levels at the neonatal intensive care unit will return to normal in August. Phil Hind, NBN News. Staff at the Department of Immigration in Watt Street were told yesterday the office was to close. Senior management cites the low number of public inquiries as the reason. However, the Community and Public Service Union disputes the claim.
The workload currently is an average of approximately 40 counter-inquiries a day and anywhere between 80 and 100 telephone inquiries. So certainly the workload is there. There is no real justification for closure of the office.
The union says it was only 3 months ago that state management agreed to a log of claims for another staff member and that the office was looking to relocate to bigger premises. Staff have been told they'll be offered positions in Sydney or at other government agencies in Newcastle. However, the union says that's unacceptable. The decision to close the Newcastle office comes as the federal government signals new arrangements to encourage migrants to settle in regional areas. The Migrant Resource Centre, which aids new arrivals, has expressed concern at the closure.
I think we'll see quite an overflow, quite a demand on our sorts of services, and frankly not quite sure how we can cope with it at this stage.
Migrant groups have vowed to fight the closure. For some, it will be their second battle.
We saved it in 1986 and we haven't seen the need for it diminish in that time.
It's understood the branch office could close as early as August. Phil Hind, NBN News.
It's alleged that in April last year, Graham Hall drove a car into his wife's home at Dyer's Crossing while she was asleep before firing a spear gun at her and hitting her in the head with a hammer. He's also charged with attempted murder over a separate incident 7 months earlier when he allegedly tampered with his wife's clothes dryer, making it live with 240-volt electricity. In giving evidence today, Hall told the court he had been concerned his wife had been mistreating their 3 children and had made the visit in April as a mission of mercy to protect them. Hall told the court he believed his wife had been beating their children with a cane and had forced them to eat soap as a punishment for bad language. He said when he arrived at the house, his wife had threatened him with a kitchen knife and he had hit her in the head with a torch in self-defence. Crown Prosecutor Laurie Gray argued Hall had gone to Dyer's Crossing angry and bitter over being denied access to the children. He said, "I put it to you that you drove to Dyer's Crossing on a mission other than merely protecting your kids from child abuse. I suggest you went there to kill Mrs. Hall," later saying, "You went there to finish the job you started when you wired the dryer." Hall denied the allegations, saying, "That's wrong. I had no intention to harm anybody. My intent was to help, not to harm." The trial continues tomorrow. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
It wasn't that long ago that parking meters were removed from the CBD. If council officers get their way, they're about to come back. And that's got local business people fuming.
We've started to get a nice flow of people back into the city. It's been a long and hard effort. To put this in now, you may as well just put a gate up at the end of Newcastle and say, don't bother coming.
The Newcastle Regional Chamber of Commerce says it's just a money-making concern to pull council out of debt.
It's going to affect a lot of businesses here, and I don't think it's going to be of great assistance. It may assist the budget, but it's certainly not going to assist the business community.
The council says the meters would deter shop workers from moving from parking space to parking space around the city. It would also encourage the use of public transport. Some free parking spaces would remain. The issue goes to council next Tuesday. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Behind these young faces are some calculating minds ready to take on the world. Do you have to be pretty smart to do it?
Well, no, not particularly, but it's best to have some smart kids in your team.
Floraville Public School gave a farewell ceremony for their 2 teams heading to the Odyssey of the Mind World Finals at Iowa State University in the United States. Groups are also going from Nelson Bay High and Newcastle University. Segregated into sections due to age, it's a problem-solving test where the students are encouraged to be creative with their minds. For the children at Floraville, it's a real thrill, and that's not just the competition.
We're going to go to Disneyland and to Universal Studios, and we're going to try and win.
Jamie Ainscough and Brett Grogan are known as exciting players, but this is the sort of excitement they didn't need. Grogan's passport had expired. Ainscough couldn't find his, while the rest of the Knights were already on the plane to New Zealand.
I rang the manager up at about 3 o'clock in the morning and said, "Oh no, can't find it." No, I didn't think I'd be going, but it's good that everything's all out of the way now. Just concentrate on the game. Yeah.
Grogan was trying to play down his embarrassment as the pair scrambled for birth certificates, signatures, forms and just about anything that would get them to Auckland.
Well, everything's all right now, so...
The story does have a happy ending. The two Knights, with passports, are now somewhere over the Tasman, and it will be a safe assumption Ainscough will be asleep after searching frantically through his house all night. But one hurdle still remains.
We haven't spoken to Mel yet. I'd say, we'll just get the game out of the way first and then we'll go through that when it comes around. Yeah.
Robert Ovadia, NBN News.
The Westpac Rescue Service relies on its Department of Health contract to keep running. That contract is now up for renewal and the service is concerned it may go to private Adelaide-based Lloyd Group. The concerns have been sparked by recent leaked information in Canberra indicating the ACT Health Department contracts will be awarded to the Lloyd Group.
The situation in Canberra we certainly don't think will happen up here, but it may just well do.
The Rescue Service is concerned that the Lloyd Company may also be vying for the New South Wales health contracts. Hunter General Manager Richard Jones says that would almost certainly force the closure of the rescue helicopter service, but he hopes it's not likely to happen.
I'd say it would have dire consequences right throughout the valley. I know the mining industry are one of our biggest supporters and they've been put on notice. As I say, but I really don't think that we will miss out, but let's certainly hope that common sense prevails and we're awarded that contract.
Warnervale Airport to the north of Wyong is no more than a runway in a large paddock. That's about to change with a $15 million revamp, which the council says will transform it into one of the best regional airports in the state.
One would say that this airport's well out of date and the new airport will give us a full regional facility.
The upgrade has been stalled by objections from a local action group. The Land and Environment Court recently dismissed those concerns.
The claims by the action group centred around impacts on flora and fauna and clearly the court found no basis for those claims.
The 900-metre runway will be doubled to accommodate larger aircraft. A state-of-the-art passenger terminal will also be built, along with new aircraft hangars and maintenance facilities. It's hoped the redevelopment will attract more visitors to the area.
A big boost in tourism, Amanda. We'll be particularly targeting the indulger market, where people can fly from Melbourne, Canberra, rural areas into the Central Coast, directly through the airport here.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News. It was the last day that Commonwealth Bank customers could transact business at the Budgewoi branch. Less than a month ago, the bank announced its closure, blaming a decline in transactions and housing loans. Still reeling from that shock, locals were dealt a double blow with the news that the Westpac branch will also close next month. Disheartened business owners say it could turn Budgewoi into a ghost town.
For the business community, it'll probably mean a reduction in their business overall, because people will probably do their shopping at Lake Haven and Gorican if they're going to have to make the effort to travel to those centres.
The community is disgusted and says it is yet another example of small areas being trampled over.
People feel that they've remained loyal to these institutions for a long, long time. You know, there was one lady who said she'd been banking with Commonwealth ever since she was 5 years of age.
The closure of the Commonwealth and Westpac branches leaves only one major bank in the town. The people of Budgewoi are concerned about their safety.
If people are going to have to do their banking further away, it means they have to transport their large amounts of cash further away, so it does present a safety problem.
Those attempting to enter the university were met by blockades, students and staff campaigning against cuts. Newcastle University's operating budget of $130 million might be slashed by $16 million.
The implications could be absolutely massive. To start with, we're talking about a substantial loss of income to the Newcastle region, with the sacking of at least 250 staff, and that's according to the Vice-Chancellor.
Academics claim the multiplier effect of lost jobs and funding to one of the city's biggest employers could mean a loss of $50 million to Newcastle. The demonstration was then taken to town, a march of around 1,000 people heading down Hunter Street.
Oh yeah, I've been in universities for quite a few years now and I've never seen anything like this.
But the protest isn't just to fend off proposed cuts. University staff are calling for a pay rise.
I think it's all part of the same struggle. I don't think we should be played off against each other. Basically, higher education has to be supported properly. That includes paying its staff as well as giving a quality education to students.
Some students and academics called for the wider community to share the burden.
Well, I think put up taxes. I mean, basically, people who benefit from a university degree later on, the chances are they'll benefit from that in terms of their income. Perhaps they can start paying some of that back in taxes later.
The review turned up complaints that the university administration had been unaware of. Rowdy behaviour, drunkenness, sexual harassment and racism have apparently been simmering problems in the university's high-standard accommodation halls.
I guess I should say, as a student representative, we haven't received that many complaints of that nature, but I think I'm not sort of denying that it could actually be happening. I think you've got to take into account the fact that we've got students from different cultures and they might view things differently and might want to sort of publicise different problems that they're having.
The halls, which are considered by most students to be conservative accommodation, have wardens, both live-in and part-time. Many overseas students or those from regional areas spend a year on average in the complexes before finding places in the outside community. The student union agrees that cultural differences, some as fundamental as food preparation areas, may be underlying factors. There'll be a move to increase live-in student participation in planning and management committees. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.